Welcome to week 3 and area of the sector. You should have watched the Oreo video first, and you should be watching this before you try the quizzes. I'm going to take you through 5 problems, all calculating either the area of a sector or something about the area of a sector. So let's see if I can go to the first one. Number 1. Find the area of the sector given that this is 5 inches, 5-inch radius, and the central angle is 80 degrees. The Oreo video goes through some of the vocabulary used. And we are talking about the area of this piece of the circle. So let's write down the formula for this. It is the fraction times the whole. And I am going to color code this. We'll put the whole in blue here. So let's start with our fraction. 80 degrees is looks like about a quarter of the circle, right? But it's not quite. 90 degrees would be a perfect quarter. So let's just write it down, and well, let's see, what do we do? Here's 80 degrees, but what's in our denominator? If you started here and started going counterclockwise, that's 80 degrees, right? What if you went the whole way around? You'd go, that would be 360 degrees, right? Let's get rid of that. So that's what we're talking about. How much of the circle are we cutting? That much. And while I have the yellow out, let's simplify that. We can knock a 0 off, and we can take a 4, divide the 8 by 4, you get 2. Divide the 36 by 4, you get 9. So that reduces nicely to 2/9, and the degrees cancel each other out. So there's our fraction. And now what's our whole? Well, we've got a way to calculate the whole area of a circle. Area equals pi r squared. And we're just going to take that 5 and say pi times 25. So this is times 25. And I guess we might as well put that down here. 25 pi. Let's see. I can do better than that. If we were in class, I could hear maybe Malaysia saying, "What does that say?" You're right. I should draw that more neatly. Now, there are 2 ways to end this. We can just multiply the numerators. 2 times 25. Let's put our final answer in red here. And just call it 50/9 pi. Let's get some units in here. We're talking about square inches. And we'd be done. Okay, and that's with pi as pi. Just leave it. Don't do anything with it. It's an exact answer. Sometimes we want a decimal approximation, though, and so we will use 3.14 as pi. You'll see those in your quizzes questions. And in that case, we're going to take 50 times 3.14, get 157, divide that by 9, and get an answer. We'd probably need to use a little squiggly equal sign. It equals about 17.44 square inches. So 2 ways to answer that. Number 2. Let's get back our yellow. Find the area of the sector given that the radius is 8 and the central angle is 90 degrees. Well, if it's 90 degrees, that's a nice perpendicular cut there, and that is 1/4 of the circle, right? So we're still talking about fraction times a whole. However, that fraction is going to be no problem for us. 90 degrees, I'll write it out. However, 90 degrees divided by 360 is 1/4. So there's our fraction. Now what's our whole? Remember, it's pi r squared. So 8 squared is going to give us 64. And this is 64 pi. I guess every time I'm doing this, I'm just writing the same thing twice. And what is 1/4 times 64? That's cutting this into fours. Cutting it in half is 32, and cutting it again is 16. So I get 16 pi. 16 pi. And of course, you could multiply that by 3.14 if you needed a decimal answer. And again, it's square inches. Number 3, find the area of the sector given that the radius is 6 inches over here. This is number 3. But what do we have here? How am I supposed to figure out this fraction? They have not given me the central angle, so I can't do the old degrees divided by 360 trick. But I do have a piece of the circumference. So what is the whole circumference here? The whole circumference is 2 pi r. So let's figure that out quickly. That's 6 plus 6, so this would be 12. 12 pi. And it looks like they're using decimals in this problem, so I am going to have to do 12 times 3.14 to get about 3768. Okay, so these problems aren't all the same. I mean, we start out with a central angle, you divide by 360, you get your fraction. But you don't want all your problems to be the same, right? You want a little creativity. So here we have, again, it is the same formula, not too creative there, fraction times a whole. And then the fraction is, well, what is it? It's this little piece, this little arc, 4.19, divided by the whole circumference, which is 3768. And if I divide those numbers, if I divide 4.19 divided by 3768, it is 0.111111, and that is 1/9. It's not quite repeating. It should be repeating. It's a little bit bigger than 1/9. I guess I'll just take it to 3 decimal places there. Okay, so that's our fraction, about 1/9. Off a little bit because of the rounding, I guess, of the decimals. Now, what's our whole? Our whole, which I had been putting in blue here. Well, our whole is still pi r squared. So we're not going to use the 12 pi. We're going to use 6 times 6. That is a frequent mistake. Sometimes students see r squared. They plug in 6, like, oh, 12 pi. But no, this is 6 times 6. This is 36 pi. So this is our 1/9 times 36 pi. And again, I'm just always writing this twice. 36 pi. Now, if that were 1/9 exactly, we'd know that's 4 pi. Let's just try the number in the calculator. I didn't even round it. It's 0.1111995754. Just keeps going. I'm just going to take that long decimal, multiply it times 36, and I get 4.003. So I'm just going to go ahead and call that 4. That's what we were going for here, 1/9 of 36. It's a tiny bit bigger than 4. And it is 4 pi, bring pi along. And what are the units? We're still talking about inches, so these are, another way to write this, square inches. If we needed a decimal answer, we would take our 4 and multiply it times 3.14, and we would get 12.56 square inches. So one of those two answers. Let's try number 4. Number 4, also a little bit different. They're not asking you to give a number for the area of the sector. However, we need to calculate it. And I don't want you to just guess. I mean, we could eyeball this, right? Say, which one looks like more pizza to you? You know, we're going to shade this in. Which one looks like more? And these are not drawn to scale, so you really can't do it by looking. You're not supposed to eyeball it. We're going to take this small pizza, a 10-inch diameter. So what's the radius of a 10-inch pizza? It's 5. So let's just keep in mind, let's see. I guess I'm going to split the screen like this. We'll do fraction times the whole. I'll put the fractions over here. So, well, what are the fractions? We don't have to think too hard about this. Each pizza is sliced into 8 slices. Don't have to think. Well, actually, maybe you have to think more. There are no degrees given here. You're like, oh no, I don't have a central angle, and I don't even have an arc given. How am I supposed to know how to do this? Well, if you slice a pizza into 8 pieces, 8 equal pieces, then this is 1/8. We already have our fraction. And this is not 1/8, but 2/8, also known as a quarter. So I'm going to write down the fractions here as 1/4 and 1/8. And then we'll switch to blue and talk about our whole. And that's the thing. Which would you rather have? A quarter of a small pizza or 1/8 of a large pizza? Well, what is this? This is pi times 5 squared. 25 pi. What's this one? Oh, I didn't write down the radius. It's an 18-inch pizza, so a 9-inch radius. And we're not doubling 9, we're squaring it. So this is pi 9 squared, or 81 pi. Oh, that's a lot bigger. That's a lot more cheese. So this might not be obvious at first. We might need to go ahead and do the division on our calculator. We get 25/4 pi, which is, by the way, 6¼ pi. Right? 24/4 would be 6. What's 81/8? 81/8. Well, that's more. 81/8. What would 80/8 pi be? That would be 10. So this is 10 point, what is an eighth? Something like, let's see, 125. So anyway, this piece wins. Last one, find the central angle of this sector. Wait a minute. We're not even being asked to find the area of the sector. They gave us the area of a sector. Well, that's unusual. We see this in math class sometimes, though. They ask us to, solve from left to right, and then they try giving us the right side. See if you could handle it. So it's still the same formula. It's the fraction times the whole equals this number we've been given. So I'll put that, quote unquote, the answer in red, 24 pi centimeters squared. Okay, and then which one of these do we know? Do we know the fraction, or do we know the whole? We don't have any degrees over here. There's really no way to see the fraction, but we do have a radius. Once you have the radius, you know it's pi r squared, so that's 64 pi is the whole thing. So we'll put that in as the whole. So here we have some fraction times 64 pi equals 24 pi. Okay, fine. But what's the fraction? Well, We don't know. How do you solve for f here? I'll put f for fraction over here. So fraction times the whole gives us that. Well, we're just going to do a little algebra, right? We're going to divide both sides by 64 pi, 64 pi, and that's our fraction right there. The units cancel out, pi cancels out, and 24 divided by 64. Well, they're both multiples of 8. So our fraction is, let me just break this down, this is 3 times 8 over 8 times 8. Now, actually, they didn't ask for the fraction, did they? So we're almost done. What is 3/8 of a circle? How many degrees would that be? So 3/8 of a circle. And that is 135 degrees. Okay, well, keep this video handy and take a look at the quizzes, and you are free to rewatch any of these 5 problems to help you do those problems. Good luck.